Hi everyone, Kelly here. Today I'm going to give you 10 tips on using this stuff called Ox Gall. What's it for? How do you use it with watercolor? If you've ever heard of this stuff and you're like, why do I want to use bile? Does it come from an ox really, or does it come from something else? I don't know. They say other things. I don't know what that means. Bear bile? Goat bile? Who knows? Who knows? This should be a little trick for you if you are a brand new watercolorist, or if you are a watercolorist, it takes more time with your paintings. So you need to have that wet into wet a little bit longer. This is going to help you. If you are using this stuff with some cheap paper, and you're frustrated with your cheap paper, this is going to help. So this works really well with like the wood pulp paper, not the 100% cotton as much. I mean, it does, but this is this is a great little addition if you want to try your pulp paper and give yourself some more time to work that wet into wet area. Stick around to the end because I'm also going to do a forest painting, just a small mini version, so you can see how it works with your watercolors. Have you heard of something called Ox Gall Liquid? What is it and how do you use it in watercolor? Let's dive into this one a little bit. So Ox Gall is a liquid. It's a solution that is actually made from a bile of an ox or maybe some other animal sometimes. And in watercolor, it's used as a wetting agent or dispersant. So it helps paint flow more smoothly. It can improve the way pigments mix and how they blend on paper. So let me give you 10 tips for using Ox Gall in watercolor to get the best results. So the first thing is start with just a few drops. Ox Gall is very concentrated, so a little goes a long way. So begin with 1 or 2 drops per cup of water and you can adjust it as you need to. And mix it with paints. You can add a small amount of Ox Gall to your watercolor palette or to your paint mixture, and it's going to help the paint spread more easily, and it's going to create a smoother gradient for your washes. Now, it's really good to use with non-cotton paper. So for wetting your paper, if you're having trouble getting paint to spread across your paper, you can lightly spritz the surface with some Ox Gall before you're painting, and it's going to help improve the pigment, make it move a little bit more evenly across your paper. And that's especially going to work well with wet on wet techniques. It's also going to improve pigment flow. So when you're mixing watercolors, if the paint is too thick or too sticky, adding a tiny drop of Ox Gall can improve the flow, and it's going to allow a smoother transition between your colors. But you do need to be cautious because of the amount that you use. A little goes a long way. So I actually like to mix mine in my water, not in the pigment. You do kind of got to play around with the ratio with that. Getting too much of the Ox Gall in there is going to make it more sticky, and your paints are not going to adhere on top of one another as easy. Number 2, mix it in your rinse water. So that's what I did the second time I used it. For even distributions, if you mix it directly into your rinse water instead of adding it to individual paint wells, it's going to help you maintain that consistent flow across your painting, especially if you're working with large washes. So number 3 is using it for large washes. If you struggle with streaky or uneven washes in larger pieces, Ox Gall can help that paint flow a little bit more smoothly across your paper, and it's going to help you reduce those patchy areas. Number 4, it improves your wet into wet effects. So Ox Gall extends that work time on your wet surfaces. It's going to allow the colors to blend more seamlessly, and it's perfect for painting mist, clouds, and those soft gradients. So I'm going to dive into a little demo for you, actually using it in a landscape. So number 5, it's great for those soft, misty landscapes. Since it keeps that paint moving longer, Ox Gall is fantastic for creating those misty trees, foggy mountains, and it helps create that depth without hard edges, and it keeps it from drying too quickly on you. Number 6, it's going to help with dry climates or fast drying paper. So if you paint in a dry environment like Maine was, you use absorbent paper that dries really fast. Some good paper does that. Ox Gall will slow that evaporation slightly, and it's going to give you a little bit more control. So again, we talked about inexpensive paper. If you have inexpensive paper, get yourself some Ox Gall. It's going to help that. So if you're working with wood pulp paper versus that 100% cotton paper. Number 7, avoid overuse for layering techniques. I think I talked about that. While it's great for blending, too much of that Ox Gall can make it difficult to build up the multiple layers, especially the transparent layers, as the paint might not grip the paper quite as well. Number 8, use it on non-cotton papers to improve flow. We talked about that. If you're using those lower quality cellulose-based watercolor paper, Ox Gall can help improve the pigment flow and reduce unwanted marks or blooms on your paper. Number 9, test it on a spare sheet first. Every brand and every batch of Ox Gall is going to behave a little differently, so that can be a little frustrating. So always test a small amount on your scrap paper before using it on a final piece. Number 10, clean your brush as well. Since Ox Gall is a wetting agent, it can linger in your brushes. So you want to rinse them thoroughly with clean water to prevent any residue buildup that might affect any future paintings. So I wanted to share with you my attempt here. I'm using water only for this one. So I'm using my Strathmore watercolor cards. I'm using a I think it's the number 8 round brush, going very loosely. So this is the water. You can see that you've got a little bit of a bloom where it was wet. And now I'm going to try the same thing using the Ox Gall rinse. I'm going to let that other one dry a little bit and try to work on both of these at the same time. So you can see the difference here. This really moves. It like bloomed way out compared to the water only. So here's the water only. We're back and it's semi-dry. So I can add a little bit more details. It's a little wet on the top there. You can still see where I have some movement, but you can see the bloom or that edge that the green made on that first round. Whereas this one is very smooth still. You can see things are moving. It's kind of like a creamy consistency, but it's just a softer texture. So I'm going to add a little bit more, again, a little bit more in the bottom. You can see, again, that blended very smoothly compared to the top ones. I've got a lot more hard edges on the top. So it definitely gives you a lot longer to work in those areas a little bit. And I'm going back up at the top here. You can see again on the bottom, I've got more texture in there. This one is going very smoothly with the Ox Gall. So I'm going to go in even darker. I'm going to use a little bit of a small brush. Let's just see how this is going to work. Now this is again the water only. All right, I've got a little dry brush here. It's still a little damp at the bottom. I can get a lot of details in those trees. Nothing is moving. And I still have some texture there. So here, again, I've waited same amount of time. This is still smoother. It's kind of a strange way to explain it. It's like buttery, like smooth and soft or creamy. That's the best way that I can kind of describe it. I still can get a little bit of dry brush in here where it was a little drier. But if you are using inexpensive paper and you're super frustrated all the time with your paper, but you don't want to spend the money on like Arches or something right now, because all of us tell you, get the good paper, get the good quality paper. If you do nothing, paints are a different story. You can kind of work with any kind of paints. I mean, there's some that are more opaque than others, like the chalky ones that we used when we were kids, but they'll work. Versus professional. Of course, if you're going to be selling your work, you want something that's going to be archival and it's going to last a long time. So here's the finished result. I mean, really not a whole lot of difference for me, but I'm also a very fast painter. So if you struggle with your paints drying too quickly, or you're in a dry climate in the winter or something, you got heat on, give Ox Gall a try and see if it's going to work for you. If you want to watch me paint the foggy painting that I showed earlier on, you can check that out, and you can also try the Ox Gall with that and see how that's going to work for you. Remember, if you're painting big, give Ox Gall a try. So I hope that was helpful. All right, guys, I will see you in the next one. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Bye.